I now feel qualified after 50 plus hikes with each bag to give a comprehensive gear review. So let's dive right into it. Which baby carrier would I recommend? Well, let's look at the specs and then we'll go over some pros and cons. So starting with comparing and contrasting the specs, the first thing you notice is the Osprey holds 26 liters of gear where the Deuter holds 18 liters of gear. So the Osprey has about 8 liters more of gear carrying capabilities. The unisex Osprey bag fits a torso range of 15 to 21 inches, where the woman's Deuter carrier fits a smaller torso of 14 to 18 inches. So ultimately, my wife had to go with the Deuter for that exact reason. She's a smaller person and the straps would just not adjust properly on the Osprey backpack. So let's go ahead and talk about some pros and cons. Some pros of the Osprey bag is that it has a 360-degree aluminum frame. It's just very solid and well put together. This section here, it's just one solid frame. Your child will always be in the same position. They won't be shifting their weight, whether you're going uphill or downhill or turning side to side, squeezing through any tight spot that you're going to be in. This bag is going to stay in the same spot, and so is your child. They're never going to touch you, and it's just very solid, well put together bag. The frame is superior to any other carrier out there by far. That is actually one of the biggest cons of the Deuter, is that it has this soft construction on the sides that kind of come together. It's a hard frame, it's solid, it has aluminum in it to keep the baby up, but it still comes together sort of like an accordion. And when that comes into factor is when you're going downhill. So when you're descending, the baby's weight shifts forward and leans against you, and at that point your center of gravity changes and you have to be a little more aware of your balance. And the baby could be slightly uncomfortable since they're now touching you instead of hovering above you with that ventilation that you would normally get from the Osprey. So that's definitely the biggest con, I would say, is just this construction, that it doesn't stay out and firm like the Osprey does. It's a little softer, and that only is a factor again when you're going downhill. When you're going uphill or walking flat, not a big deal whatsoever. Pro Osprey, con for the Deuter as far as the frame construction. Another pro that I think the Osprey has is this sunshade. The sunshade on this is awesome. It has its own compartment, comes out, hooks up here, and just adds an extra protection from the sun. Perfect, the sun came out just in time. It's just really solid. This whole frame, like I said, there's aluminum parts in here and this thing stays up. Which brings me to the con on the Deuter, which the sunshade, it's a little more flimsy, as you can tell. It's not connected to the bag. Once it's in there and it's clipped in, it's pretty flimsy. So a lot of times my daughter would be pulling at these and it ended up hitting my wife in the back of the head, and it's just not as solid as this one. So again, Osprey wins that pro of having a solid sunshade, where the Deuter is a little more flimsy. It's great that they both have them though. I think it's a necessity. If you're going outside with your kids, you need an extra layer of protection from the sun. So make sure that your baby carrier has one of those. Let's get to some of the cons of the Osprey. There are some things that the Deuter does do better. So a con that it's not a huge deal, but I find it difficult for inserting the water bladder. So it says here 1.5 liters, that you can fit a water bladder in between this mesh here, and I always struggle. This is an empty water bladder. It kind of slides down in there. The trick I learned is to reach from the sides and then pull it down. But imagine doing this with a full 1.5 liters I've stretched 2 liters in there. I've read people able to fit 3 liters. I don't know how they're able to do that, but it takes me at least 5 minutes every time, just trying to fit that in there and get it in there in the right position. So I would say a con for the Osprey bag is that it's a lot harder to get that bladder in, where the Deuter is much easier. It just has this side pocket right here. You unzip it, slide your bladder in right there from the side, and zip it up. Boom, no problem. So I would say Pro water bladder. This one also is advertised to hold 2 liters, where this one's advertised to hold 1.5 liters. So Pro Deuter, accessibility of the bladder itself and capacity of the bladder is much better on this Deuter. That's one thing I think Osprey needs to step their game up. Figure out a way to get a bladder in there. I've actually tried Osprey's bladder brand and the Camelback, all the different brands, to see if one worked better. They're all difficult to get in there, and 1.5 liters seems to be the kind of sweet spot for the capacity of water I can bring with this one. So Deuter definitely wins in the bladder, in the water carrying compartment. Another pro on the Deuter is that this material, all the mesh, even all the material has lasted extremely well. It's worn a little bit, it's slightly discolored, but there's no major holes or rips or tears or anything in it. The Deuter, however, has some small rips and tears in it. I guess the sunscreen is the biggest hole that I have on here. The mesh ripped on this side. So I would say small con on the Osprey, that the mesh and the material is not as good quality as the mesh and the material on the Deuter. So overall though, they're both great baby carriers. Just having a hard shell carrier like this, it's so much better than using a soft shell carrier when you're going hiking. The anti-gravity suspension that you have the child kind of hovering above you just improves your center of gravity when you're moving around. It's so much more comfortable. It's so much better on your back. There's a lot more ventilation going underneath your back, between the backpack. The child's not actually touching you. So overall, a hard shell carrier is a great investment. It's a great way to help get you and your family outside and adventuring. Remember, if you have any questions or there's something that I missed in this video, go ahead, ask that in the comment. I almost always respond to all of the comments, so hopefully I can be a useful resource for you. And on that note, I hope that you guys are getting outside, staying hydrated, and keep on moving.